Hello and welcome to Dream It, Dare It, Do It, Live the Life You Want. This is Jasmine. I'm your host for this podcast, and I want to say hello to everybody that is listening to me because I was just looking at my stats and I've got people in the Philippines listening, I've got people in Sweden, in Denmark, and like I'm just so excited that there's so many people listening all over the place. So, hi. Um, and today I'm continuing on my interviews with, my friends and colleagues in the industry who are doing fantastic work. And we've just had this gentleman with us, but he was accompanied by somebody else, and we talked about the 3P UK. But today we're going to talk about, Aaron and one thought, right, Aaron?
Yeah, right. One thought an Aaron. Yeah.
So thank you for coming on. I'm
Mm.
looking forward to hearing what's up, what's going on with you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really glad to be here. It's nice to have some time to chat.
So I've been in the past few months. I mean, I've always been because my podcast is Dream It, Dare It, Do It, Live the Life You Want. So I'm always about, getting people to just do what they want to do and like not put themselves in a box and
Hmm.
not live life that they think is the right life to live and
Yeah.
just finally get to touch this place in them that is the place that knows what is good for
Hmm.
them,
Hmm.
you know?
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I know that you're doing quite a bit with One Thought in
Hmm.
understanding, where our experience of life comes from
Hmm.
and all
Hmm.
of that. So
Hmm.
what are you up to lately
Yeah.
in One Thought?
Well, I mean, just to give people a bit of background, one thought was born out of the realization that our mind is a very powerful thing. And most adults have very little awareness of the role it's playing. And more importantly, when it's on their side and when it's working against them. Because if you don't know when your mind's on your side and when it's working against you, you don't know how to take advantage of what it has to offer and avoid how tricky it can be when it's being mischievous. And that's a huge problem in what you described. It's like when I think a major reason that people struggle and suffer is because they don't understand when to trust their mind and when not, or when their experience is even coming from their minds. There's a huge missing piece. And I love what you said about people living the life they want, because if people don't know how to interpret their experience, how they don't really know what they want. They only know what they feel they want or they think they want, and they follow all these false cues and impulses that are never going to go anywhere because it's their mind playing tricks on them.
Yeah.
The naughty, naughty mind. So the goal of one thought is to basically call out the mind so that we know what it's up to, and we know when it's being tricky, and we know when it's really, really got something to offer. And it's powerful. It's really powerful to be able to discern the two. Now the update is because I wanted to bring this kind of awareness to the mainstream, I've always worked with businesses. So um, most of the work we do is in service to organizations that want to have an easier time with less problems. Um, by understanding the performance role of clarity of mind. But more recently, we've kind of I've kind of gotten much more involved in trying to support practitioners. That we've always offered practitioner training for people that want to work this way. But more recently, I've kind of really been inspired to support the learning and impact of practitioners that are already working with clients. So the understanding that these people are working with. So if there are practitioners working with the three principles, they're working with a very powerful understanding. And I'm kind of inspired to help them really get the most out of what they understand. so that they can guide, exactly like you, they can guide themselves, they can develop their own learning, they can meet their own challenges. So that's one of my I don't know, driving inspirations at the moment.
Yeah, well, it is that there is a difference between, I mean, I haven't taken your class. I haven't been on a class with you, but I've heard you speak many a times, and you know, I'm confident there's an impact there. But I also understand why practitioners could get lost because, you know, we're human beings, and
Mm-hmm.
we can get very easily, like I know for me, I get caught up in what I've learned. You know, like I kind of
Mm-hmm.
like get this, okay, I've learned that I'm going to look at the podcast. When I started the podcast, it was kind of like, okay, you have to have an intro and you have to talk for 5 minutes and then you have to get into this and then you want to talk about this point and you want to, you know, like there was all of this going on in my mind when I first started. And I would get lost. I mean, it was like I look at my first few episodes and I'm going in and out, and I'm like, okay, here I could see myself. I'm going, oh, here I'm trying to go to the agenda. Here I'm just being in flow. When I finally just got that, okay, I don't have, I can, what I've learned is good. I've heard it, but use it the way that my feeling tells me to use it, not use it in this is how it has to be, you
Yeah,
know? And we get
totally.
lost.
No, I agree with you, because I think when I talk to practitioners, there's this idea that there's a principles way, that there's a way, that there's things you should talk about and things you shouldn't talk about. There's ways you should do it and ways you shouldn't do it. But really, if we look towards the principles more fundamentally, it points to the fact that we're connected to the intelligence behind life. So when I was trained, I was taught, no, there's no rules. You do what clarity of mind says, and you don't do what it says when it's contaminated.
Mm,
That's the rules. It's a hot cold game. There's nothing else. And I think that's can be uncomfortable for people, because they're used to thinking they're supposed to know what they're doing, as opposed to, no, you're not supposed to know what you're doing. It is not, in a way, it's not really coming from you individually, you know.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that makes sense.
So your passion right now is helping the practitioners to just get that. Like I liked what you said in the previous podcast. We'll we'll plug the previous podcast about the
Yeah.
3PUK. In there, what you said was, oh my God, it slipped my mind now. But you said something to the effect of, you know, we think it should. Oh my God, it really disappeared.
That will happen.
It'll come back. It'll come back. But yeah, I agree with that. I think that that's a good access because I see for myself, like, again and again and again and again, it's not out there, it's me. So, and
Mm-hmm.
now my new thing is I'm looking at, you know, whenever there's a reaction, whenever I have a reaction,
Huh?
if a reaction shows up and then I kind of like, I slow it down and I go, what was that? What was that about? And you know, I did that with my father. I had
Mm-hmm.
my relationship with my father, and anybody that knows me knows that it was difficult for me. I think it was difficult for
Mm-hmm.
him. It was difficult for
Mm-hmm.
me.
Yeah.
And I really slowed it down. I was kind of like, because it was always him. It's
Mm-hmm.
him. It's
Mm-hmm.
him. It's him. And I varied. It was either him or it was me. Do you understand? It's like
Yes.
it's his fault or it's my fault. And then I was
Yeah.
caught up in fault and nothing was ever coming of it.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But the second I stopped putting it on him and I stopped making myself wrong, I was able to slow it down enough, because whenever I make myself wrong, I'm like totally reactivated. I can't be
Yes.
wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I have to defend myself.
Mm-hmm.
When I was able to slow it down, I was able to see stuff under.
Mm.
I was able to see, oh, I have hurt. And then I was able to go, because I'm so present now, and this was happening so fast. Now
Mm-hmm.
that I slowed it down, I was able to become present to, I've got hurt, and
Mm.
it's old, it's past, it's
Yes.
done.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's a really nice example because I think when I so I've been spending more time with practitioners who have clients, helping them get a feel for being a student of what we do. Because the power of working with these principles is that you're kind of, it's your job to keep learning. It's your job to be a student of them. And you only get stuck when you reach the end of your learning. But if you know how to be a student of them, you can keep going. You kind of become unstoppable. And I really resonated with what you said. It's like, I think it's very easy to be disappointed, to kind of react to what's happening, to be disappointed, to be frustrated, to take it personally, to blame it on the client. you know, but we only get stuck when we feel bad because we're in no fit state to do any better. But if what I heard in what you said is, if you can get neutral in a way that allows you to be curious rather than reactive, all of a sudden you can't help but learn, and that'll take you past your current limits. That'll put you on new ground, like it did with your father. And what I love about working in this field is that's core to this field. It's like you get stuck, you look to your understanding, you evolve. So it's all a different. It's a different reality.
Yeah, and
It's
there's stuff that it's the kind of things that once you see it, you can't really unsee it.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But also you don't know what you haven't seen.
Yes, exactly. That's why I love the word seeing, because
Yeah,
it's really a seeing. It's not a learning, like learning steps and a learning, oh, okay, mind does this and conscious, because that's what I did in the beginning. Mind does this and consciousness of that, and thought was that, and thought was the big no-no for me, because thought was not wisdom. And it was like I got caught up in that whole part, you
yeah.
know, but I'm starting to see how it's just like it's a dance between all of it. It's kind of like, oh,
Mm.
oh, I'm seeing, and it's recognizing, seeing,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
when you're where
mm-hmm.
or
Yeah, yeah.
what you're looking at.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Yeah, because thought is like and sometimes I think about it like, well, thought's a phone signal between you and the intelligence behind life. But if you get a bad line, it's hard to know what the message is,
Mm.
but you still, you're still using the phone either way.
Yeah, yeah. So now you're helping companies,
Yeah.
and you were telling me off camera that you have a class for the public.
Yeah, so one of the exciting things about the last year is we have an offering for the public. We only ever had offerings for people that wanted to be practitioners or were practitioners or companies. And now we have something that is a really nice way to connect with One Thought, to learn with Leela and I as a member of the public. So we have a program called Foundations of Wellbeing. And basically, it's an exploratory tour through the core pieces of understanding that help us find more well-being, suffer less from distorted thought. And it's a mixture of our online learning platform, which is an online video course of like 9 core lessons and over 65 supporting videos on all sorts of topics. You get a year's access to that, but also you get 5 longer webinars with us each one focused on a key point, the understanding of which is core. So like, for example, the first one is we want people to consider whether that we might be considering our mind and not our circumstance. And what I've noticed is the more uncompromising you're willing to be about that, the more freedom of mind you have. So if you feel like, well, yeah, I'm experiencing 5% of my mind and 95% the outside world, you're going to have 5% freedom of mind and you're going to feel 95% victimized. But if you're willing to consider, wow, maybe it's 100, you might discover there's a lot more freedom of mind available than you ever imagined. So it's helping people really push themselves on what they're willing to consider so that they can make discoveries that they wouldn't otherwise have made in a very simple, easily accessible, light format. You watch some videos and then we get together on a webinar, and it takes place over 7 or 8 weeks.
Okay. Nice. Okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna put all of these links on in the descriptions, people. So don't worry if you're not taking notes. We'll have something in the description. It's like, as you were speaking, I just had a flash of one of my girlfriends who I've been talking to for years. I mean, I have been in this conversation for a long time, and I have been talking to a girlfriend. And she just had an event for her. She fell and she hurt herself. And she fell on her face, like literally fell on her face, and she broke her glasses, right? And she, in the moment, what she was explaining to me was I was literally breathing and slowing it down. And she says, I was talking to myself, telling myself, oh, I'm afraid of what I'm thinking. It's what I'm thinking right now that I'm afraid of. Like she kind of like really truly saw it for herself, which was really, really cool to hear her have that experience, because we don't always have that experience. I remember having that experience. I had broken up with a guy and I was crying and and I was bawling, like literally bawling. And then I kind of had a thought that was like, but why? Why are you crying right now? And then I started listening, and I was crying because I wasn't crying because of the guy.
Yeah.
You know, I was crying because I was telling myself, that's it, you're going to be single for the rest of your life. You're pathetic. Nobody's going to want you. And like all of the stuff that I was telling myself was like, everybody would have cried.
Oh, totally. Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah,
And I saw it
absolutely.
and I was like, okay, no. Okay, come back. You're fine. You're okay.
Yes.
You were this guy with 3 months. Like it kind of just got me
Yes.
back into perspective of what was,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly. But it's that invisible assumption that what you're feeling is for real in some way. That so if you think, oh, I'll never find another relationship, and because you feel it, you think it's for real, of course that's going to be upsetting.
Yeah.
But it's a whole nother thing if you realize, oh, well, that's not necessarily true. I'm just feeling it because I'm having that thought. It's the same experience, but it's completely different. It's a completely different, I don't know what you'd say, like experience of that experience, which I find so powerful. Just that one little thing, just to consider, oh, we're experiencing I don't know how to say it, the reality that our mind creates. And that's, that's not a fixed thing. That's, sometimes in journalism, they say, consider the source. Like when we have experiences, it's nice to be able to consider the source, like, how insightful is it versus how insecure or reactive is it? And it's so helpful. I found very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, our thoughts definitely, have a major impact on what how we experience life. And I can see those thoughts that are, they're traps like you start thinking that you're done, like
Yeah,
there's
that's
these thoughts,
right.
fairness, this is not fair.
Oh, I
That's it.
know.
There you
I
go.
know.
You're
I
gone.
know. I know. But what's really fascinating to me is that it's not the thought. The thought does not cause a problem
Yeah.
until you consider it credible. So
Mm.
if you have the thought, this is not fair, and you consider, yeah, it's not, you're lost, you're gone, you're locked in, you until you rethink that, there's nothing you can do. You're going to be one gripe after the next. And people don't realize it's not just a feeling, it's the way you see things, right? So when Mara and I started One Thought, I would have it's not fair thinking, like, oh, it's not fair, I'm doing this, she's doing that, she's not doing this, but I did not want to get into that reality because I couldn't have a good relationship, and I wanted to have a good relationship with my partner. So I didn't authorize that viewpoint. And as a result, I had feelings of it's not fair, but they came and went because as soon as you say that's true, everything looks that way. Everything looks unfair. Why am I always the only one? And you basically, like you
Yeah.
say, you sign a contract.
It's like, but I love what you said. It's like I just didn't allow it because I wanted to have a good relationship. And there are these, that's what I mean when I say, you know, live the life you want and like really clearly see what you want. What you want is a good relationship with your partner. So fairness is like, it's not that if you go there, it's going to contaminate it. So like,
Yes. Yeah.
there's these things that become more important than what you think.
Yeah. But the fascinating part is that until you can drop the contamination, you don't know what you think, because
Mm.
you think what you feel when you're contaminated, and you don't. That's the problem. Most people have no idea what they want because they think they want what their contaminated thinking wants. So, for example, if I'd gotten into, oh, it's not fair, I'd say, well, what do you want, Aaron? Well, I just want it to be fair and I just don't want to be the one, right? Whereas actually, I don't really care about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. There are things that were like,
Yeah, yeah. Like we many years ago, we had this situation where we got insecure about our savings. And in that state of insecurity, it felt like the most important thing in the world was not losing our savings, right? And at some point, Leela said, you know what? I don't want to feel this way just because our savings are in jeopardy. I don't want to feel this way. And because we understood about thought, we're like, oh, okay, yeah, that is possible, that you're not obsessed with your worries. And if you're not obsessed with your worries, you're going to feel better. So we decided, oh, let's feel better. The most fascinating thing happened when I felt better. My savings was not even in my top 5. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to have a good relationship with Leela. I wanted the kids to be healthy and happy. I mean, they were like, it didn't even make the top 5. But in that state of anxious obsession, it felt like everything else was a distant second. So I honestly had no idea what mattered to me when I was anxious. And I think that's true for everybody. But nobody knows. Well, not many people know that.
hmm, yeah, it's just amazing. Like one day something is this like the most important thing, and then you see something different, and then the next day it's kind of like I remember there are things that like I'm looking at my father, like what happened with my father, and I'm like I sometimes I go, was I really upset with him? Was I? Like it's like literally disappeared. It's
Yeah,
vanished.
that's
It's
cool.
not there anymore. Once you see it, it kind of disappears. It just goes away and you can't even
Yeah.
remember. I remember Michael Neal used to say this story where he went to see George Pransky. He was hiring George, and when he came in to see George, he told him about, some issues he had with his wife, and George said, "Well, here's my book, the relationship handbook," and so he went out and he read it, and then he came back, and then George says, "So how's it going with your wife?" And Michael's like, "Good." And then he moves on. He goes, "No, but how did it go? Like we were talking last time and it was really bad. You know what's going?"
Mm.
And he said, Michael's like, "And I had to think about it because it was
Mhm.
gone."
Yeah, 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 yeah. And the thing is, people know that, like if the tag of your sweater is itchy and you think about it, it gets maddening. And if you don't, it goes away. But they don't know that's true for anxiety. They don't know that's true for, insecurity. They don't know that's true for it's not fair or resentment or that because these things exist in thought, if we don't believe in them and we don't feed them, they literally don't exist anymore. It's mind-blowing.
Yes, it is.
Mind-blowing. And every time something comes on really strong and then disappears, it's still mind-blowing.
And you
So
see it over and over again.
yeah, yeah, that's right.
And that's where, when you were saying it's not about what you learn, it's about feeling the nudge, because we get to see it again. I'm like, and my intellect goes, "It's thought, Jasmine. It's thought. Like you saw
Mm-hmm.
this years ago, but you're seeing it over and over again."
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, a lot of times I have to be more gentle with myself. It's like, look, are you willing to consider this as thought and you're just taking it wrong? And sometimes the answer is no, leave me alone, I'm working on it. And I'm like, okay, I'll see you in a week or so. I'll come back. And then I come back. And then at some point I'm like, yes, okay, I'm willing. And then that's that openness to reconsidering what's going on really, it's like that loosens the knot for me. It's like you said earlier, it's like being willing to go back to the drawing board and be a student. Well, what is going on? Where do feelings come from? And is it really made up? Is there a deeper richness to the mind, no matter what you're facing in life? You know?
Well, this is a perfect segue to say, what's going on in April?
Well, out of my desire to really help practitioners find their own ability to learn from what they're doing and develop, I last year I started a professional retreat, which is a weekend retreat that any practitioner can attend virtually or in person. It's in London. It's a Friday night social because the idea is we're all colleagues. I want people to kind of be able to meet each other and get to know each other. And then we have an introductory session. And then over the next 2 days, we have a mixture of live client sessions and discussions, all aimed at getting a feel for seeing the principles at play in our work so that we can unlock our own impact, unlock our own learning, unlock our own development. I think it's a gift to work this way because, it's our job to keep learning and to outstrip our limitations. And I want practitioners to get a feel for that, because once you know that there are principles, you don't really need anything else if you get a feel for going back to the drawing board. And so this annual retreat is a chance to kind of get together as practitioners, as colleagues, step back for a couple of days and just take a deeper look at the underpinnings of our work and how it shows up with our clients and everything else that we do.
Bathe in the feeling.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah.
Well, sounds like you're going to have a lot of fun.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
get
I mean, last year I was thrilled with it. It was fantastic. It's one of those things where you have a vision for something, but you never actually think it's gonna be exactly what you hoped for. And last year in June it really was. So I was really hell bent on doing it again this year.
great. So it's going to be on your website. Everything's on your website.
Yes, so the professional retreat is on the website. The Foundations of Wellbeing is on the website. And if you're if you're interested in other stuff I do for practitioners, you just go into the practitioner programs. So those are all on the menu bar. You'll find those on the menu bar.
Fantastic. Well, Erin, thank you so much. Thank you for everything that you do. I love that, you're gonna help us to understand that you have it all. It's
Yeah.
like, the principles, just go back to them. That's
Mm-hmm.
what you were saying in the other video. You were
Mm-hmm.
saying we're practitioners, and then we go, okay, now I've got a problem. Where should I go look? Just go
Yeah.
back to look inside.
Yeah.
We don't need any more training per
Yes.
se,
Right. Exactly. It's getting a feel for the fact that we don't need any more training, and not looking towards other people, but getting a feel for the power of the intelligence within.
Well, thank you so much.
A real pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's nice to be able to talk about this.
Great. Well, I'm happy that people are going to be listening to this, and they're going to reach out to you, hopefully, and
Great.
that's it. So thank you for coming, and everybody else, I'm going to say, just dream it, dare it, do it, live the life that you want, and I'll see you in the next episode. Have a good one. Bye.